When we communicate, you say that we have to use a structured approach, we will have to use this method and this. Okay, we understand this is how we're gonna speak. But this is the output you're talking about. How do we speak? That is the main objective. Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Detox. And if you have watched the last videos, which some of you have given the feedback that it helped, and some of you have the questions, right? Okay, this is what basically is been talked about. But when you talk about communication, how do we do it? So first of all, the last video we adopted the concept of how do we do a proper structured communication and discuss certain nuances. Now in this video, why you're going to spend the time with me, here we will be talking about more on the process on which how you developed the corresponding structure when you communicate. Now, the very important thing which we should be discussing over here is basically understand the correspondent cycle of communication. Now, in this video, if you spend the next few minutes with me, what you're going to get, you're going to understand what exactly the cycle of communication is. Second part, we will be talking about one of the very important concept of how basically the whole structure process is developed, what lies beneath that. And in the end, we will come to certain very eventful outcomes which will really help you. So first of all, the cycle of communication. When we talk about the cycle of communication, we need to understand what exactly how our brain works. Our brain works, whatever we have in our brain is basically the thoughts which translates into our words or into any writings or anything or any non-verbal clues. Now, so right at the beginning, the most important starting point of communication is to have a proper synchronization between your thought process and the output, or rather the medium in which you're communicating. So the most important thing, whenever you are trying to communicate, what you need to understand is you have to think what exactly you want to communicate. There are certain instances where it is more from a spontaneous perspective, and how it happens based on as when and when we practice that spontaneous of saying, like spontaneous replying. We will not be talking about that communication here. We will be talking about a well drafted communication way of communicating. So when we communicate, the first most important thing is we should adopt the Pareto principle. Now, what is this Pareto principle? Let's make it more simply. So, you should devote 80% of your time thinking and structuring the thing you want to communicate in your head, in your mind, what exactly you want to communicate, and 20% of the time should be devoted in the way you want to translate it. Words are the mere carrier, or rather a medium of how you translate it. So the main problem is we focus a lot on which words to use, but the problem is we haven't ever thought of what exactly we want to communicate. So understand, when you communicate, words comes to 20% of the pipeline. 80% of the pipeline, what comes is what exactly you want to do. So you need to spend 80% of your time thinking what you want to communicate. How you want to communicate, that is a 20% of the time. Now, if you break that 20%, which we'll be talking later, first let us emphasize on the part of 80%. How do we think basically? This is one of the very important thing which we want to understand, and that brings us to a very important concept which has been used by a lot of companies, lot of people, well-known companies, that is called the first principle thinking. Now, what is this first principle thinking? Am I talking about something new? Not really. First principle thinking basically is about breaking down the problem, or breaking down the objective into much more granular level and finding out what exactly is the thing we are working upon. That is very important. So for example, understand anything which actually you want to communicate, any problem, any news or anything is not actually the thing which the other person wants to solve. So, in that perspective, what you should basically do is right from the onset of the first principle thinking tells that you have to break down what exactly is the objective of that into the most granular level, and based on that, translate it into the main core objective of your communication. Now, once you get to understand what exactly is the main objective, you will be able to. This is first of all, so for example, somebody wants to visit a place. Okay. The first thing is you get to understand, you start communicating, you want to visit a place. That is not the objective of the person which will be able to communicate the message properly. We need to understand why does he want to visit that place. So for example, somebody wants to visit a place. Why does he want to visit a place? Because he has never seen that. Why has he never seen that? Because he was busy doing other things. Why was he busy doing other things? Because in daily life is scheduled in such a way that he doesn't get too much to visit places and he's more being tough to that. Okay, why is it tough? Because of the fact because he was not part of the city where he is visiting, and that's why he didn't get time to visit that place. Okay, so the first thing which you need to communicate is that person is basically new to the town. So when you communicate a person, the real problem is not visiting the place. The real problem is that person is new to the town. We don't get the answer at the first go. When we do a initial level of analysis, then we get to understand what basically is the granular block which will decide of that. Now, this is how you structure your thought process. Once you structure your thought process and you understand what basically you want to communicate, what you want to communicate, next part of the 20%, you need to devote it to how you want to do it. We do the reverse, and that's the problem. Maximum of the, and now when we break up this 20%, you need to understand within this 20%, you need to devote 10% of the time in, okay, what are the words, and 10% in reading out or talking to yourself. If you would have been in that person's perspective, what you would have done. I basically, whenever there's something very critical to me and whenever I want to convey my message, I practice it a lot. So it's an iterative way when we talk about communicating. It's an iterative way of, first of all, think, break down what exactly the message you want to convey and what is the problem, what is the objective of the message, and try to come to the granular level of that using the first principle theory of understanding why. Break it down till the time you get the granular thing, right? And after that, use that thing to communicate. Now, once you have the framework ready inside your brain, now you need to devote the time on how would you attach words to it so that it expresses this. Now, when you have that unstructured format change into a structured format, then you need to practice and see whether there is something which is really good. And once you have that, you get the proper structured way of communicating, and it helps. So in this video, what we talked about how we actually follow a structured approach of communicating, and then we talked about what exactly is first principle theory, and the third thing is how much time should we devote how much to all the corresponding things. So hope you like the video. If it helps you, please subscribe, please like, please share, because it helps me and give me feedback on how I can make more good videos, because that helps me to prepare very good videos. So thank you so much. Very, very helpful that you watched it, and hope it helps. Thank you.